Here we go. Trigger warning. Spoiler alert. Duck. You are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show. When I first started doing this podcast about 2 years ago now, 2 years on the dot, the gimmick was I was trying to find people who would turn lemons into lemonade, face challenges, and somehow turn them into successes. And my newish friend or casual acquaintance, whatever you want to call her, Ariel Elias, who's a great stand-up comic, did just that. She was at Uncle Vinnie's Comedy Club, which I have only performed at because of this podcast. Our friend Marianne kept calling Uncle Vinnie's and calling Dino at Uncle Vinnie's and saying, "Oh, this guy Tom Kelly's amazing. You need to put him on stage." And I got a couple of great bookings there, and then some got canceled, and then some I had to cancel because I was doing Rachel Ray. And I've actually talked about my one weird experience in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and Ariel's story fits right into that. Ariel performing on stage at Uncle Vinnie's, a club I like, a club I've had a good time at, and a heckler threw a beer at her. She has gone viral. Ariel Elias has appeared on or has had her story told on Deadline, The Today Show, The Daily Mail, The Washington Post, Fox News, Fox 5, Vulture, TMZ, Mashable, Daily Voice, the Jimmy Kimmel Live, and JewishHumor.com. And I guess this is where we start. Ariel, who are you and how the hell did a beer get... I guess let's start at why you're viral and we'll work our way backwards. Why the hell did someone throw a beer at you at a comedy show?
Well, first of all, I love that you said Jimmy Kimmel Live and then the Jewish Daily Humor.
I feel like that's a little bigger. I feel like that's a little bigger in a lot of circles. People know.
It meant a lot to me. Why did somebody throw a beer at me? I mean, I guess like the deep reason is because like somebody was unhappy with their lives and looking for a fight and thought that I would be an easy target. But like, I think at this point, most people have seen the clip, especially if they're listening to a podcast that I'm on.
Yeah. And actually, I'll insert, in fact, to that point, I saw the email just came in. I'll insert the clip so that way you sound smart with what you say.
What's your question?
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Did I vote for Donald Trump? What do you think?
No.
Okay. Here's the question for you. Why would you ask me that in here knowing I'm the only Jew in this room? Are you trying to get me killed? If it makes you feel any better, I vote in New York. My vote doesn't matter there. It doesn't matter here either. It doesn't matter, guys. Guys, everybody vote for whoever you want to vote. I don't care who you voted for. I'm just happy we're all here together.
So you voted for Biden?
I don't know. Why does it matter? Yeah, so what? Why does it matter?
I can just tell by your jokes you voted for Biden.
Why are we talking
about politics? I can tell by the fact that you're still talking when nobody wants you to that you voted for Trump.
Donors telling you to stop.
All right, make some noise if you want her to shut up. But I did ask if anybody had any questions. I didn't think it was going to be... That's on me. That was on me for thinking I could have a human interaction with somebody. That's my fault. No, look, I'm such an insecure person. Here, I'll tell you the rest of that bit, and then we'll move on. I'm so insecure. I went and got an IUD.
Okay. Come on, buddy. Can't do that. Are you fucking kidding me? Yo, I'm never coming out with this group of people ever again. Straight up, yeah.
But I don't really know what it was that I said that like really triggered this person, because I wasn't doing like political jokes. I wasn't doing political humor. And then this woman asked, I said, does anybody have any questions for me? That's the thing that I say right before the video starts.
Okay.
And
And
This
why
woman
did you
raised her
say
hand.
now? Why did you say that? Now I say that this is going to sound. I'm imposing my life on me when I say anybody have any questions for me. That means I'm not happy with where the set is going, and I'm
Interesting.
great at crowd work. Is that what? Is that your move or?
No, my move is like I'm trying to get clips. I didn't mean to get this clip. But you know, as comedians, we have to like constantly put out content, and crowd work, it's just nice when it goes well, because then you can put it up and not have to burn any material, and you get to
Yeah.
say, great, I posted a video today.
But
And I
that's how
still have
you're
all my jokes.
generating it. You're generating
Yes.
it when you're in a live crowd. You'll do. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, if it's
Brilliant.
not happening naturally. I'm not great at crowd work anyway. That's not really where I generally shine, and it's not my go-to. Like my go-to is material and like clever joke writing.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
whatever.
and I mean, I can remember I've met you at least twice before I saw you last week. And I remember your act. Not make fun of, but you talk about your name, Ariel, the Little Mermaid. You talk about being Jewish. I'm from Kentucky, always stuck in my head.
Yeah,
And then you're
it's a
right.
great
After
hook.
that, Jewish, Kentucky, I think you did a little bit on your husband. And anyway, yeah, you were funny. I mean, like you're not a, oh my God, let me go talk to the crowd and start a political fight comic.
No, definitely not. And if it happens organically, great. I find it really hard to do crowd work without getting mean. So if there is an antagonist in the crowd, then I can do well with that. But I'm not like looking for a fight.
No, you're a nice, gentle. Gentle's a strong word, but you aren't. But yeah, you're kind of, yeah. Why not gentle? For a comic, you're pretty damn gentle, or not. You're not a aggressive person.
Yeah, I'm usually not looking to embarrass anybody. Because
Yeah.
I understand too, that's a lot of people's worst fear, especially why, sometimes when people come to a comedy show and they'll say, whatever you do, just don't put me up front. Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to make fun of me. And I don't want to discourage people from sitting up front. I don't want to confirm that fear.
Oh, yeah. Well, now let's focus on the story for a second, because I performed there, and I'll tell you my story about Point Pleasant.
Yeah, please.
Or Point Pleasant Beach. I actually like Dino there, the guy who runs the club. And I got a weird feeling that after having you on this podcast, I'll never work there again. But
why?
I don't know. Are you? Well, I'll tell you. I don't know. Or actually, maybe you could tell me, because he hasn't answered any of my calls since I canceled the gig in September there. When I went down there, I had a great time at the club. So much so, I went out with Kathy, the waitress, who is the sweetest human being on earth, and John, the cook, and another comic named Joe Fernandez, you might know from the city. We go to a bar across the street. I can't remember the name of it, but everybody was obsessed with the place that they made good hamburgers. And they actually had the bartender was also the grill operator. It was a pretty cool bar. And then I guess this is at the beginning of Ukraine, and there's a guy at the bar drunk. And I say this, I'm Irish, I could say, but just everything that was wrong about drinking at an Irish pub on Long Island, in Long Beach, or in Brooklyn. And he starts just looking at me, and I guess I screamed, I did not vote for Trump with my look.
Okay, so when you say the beginning of Ukraine, you mean the beginning of the war with Ukraine?
Yes, not the beginning
of the
of
dissolution of the Soviet Union.
Exactly. Yes, and not yes, exactly. Not 1992. This happened just over right before the summer, I guess. And long story short, this guy's like, "Rah, rah, my cousin's from Ukraine," and he just yells out, "Oh!" And I just said politely, "I don't want to talk politics." A few minutes passes, and then he goes, "Who did you vote for?" And I said, "Mickey Mouse." And it's funny, I just voted, and just to own my politics for a second, I just swept Republican even in November, but I didn't vote for Trump. And actually, it's none of your friggin' business who I voted for. So I said Mickey Mouse. It was just not a man I wanted to talk to, even if I agreed with him.
I'm starting to think that that's just how people in Point Pleasant Beach say hello, is they go, "Who did you vote?" That's just a South Jersey hello.
Yeah, and long story short, the guy walks out of the bar yelling at me, and then my back is to the door, and John the cook caught this. The guy then charges in, and this is a 60-year-old drunk Irish guy. He charges in to swing at me, and John stopped it. And then to hear your story, which it kind of triggered me, and also first hearing the story before realizing it was you, I'm like, yeah, I could see that happening. And then when I realized it was you, I'm like, how the hell did this happen to Ariel? And then third one, your composure was perfect. And we just showed the clip, but the part that made the headlines was you picked the beer. And by the way, it wasn't a beer. What was it?
No,
High Noon?
It was a High Noon.
What flavor?
I don't know.
Okay.
No idea.
And you drank it.
Yeah.
Were you actually scared? Because you sure as heck didn't look it.
Yeah, look, I think anytime I'm like in a back and forth with somebody, I have adrenaline going, right? Like anytime I'm veering off of my material, I get a little nervous, and I've learned to just sort of like breathe through it, not let the adrenaline win. So there was more adrenaline when the drink was thrown, but I was still in that mode of like, don't let them see you shake. Like, don't let them see that they've gotten to you at all. So I was just breathing through it. But yeah, I was nervous. I was scared. It was like, I think the biggest thing was I just couldn't believe that it had happened. And like the back of my pants were wet from the splash. And it took me a little bit to realize like, oh, somebody threw a drink at me.
You stayed on stage. I mean, I had somebody throw an apple at me at Stand Up New York. It's a long story, but the guy apologized after because he thought I saw it and would catch it, was the line. And it was a weird Stand Up New York.
Yeah, comedians famously really good at hand-eye coordination and general sports.
Yeah. Now I gently tossed the apple to him because it was like a trivia show or whatever, and I was giving out prizes. And then the guy, I think the guy was a bit of a piece of crap too, but I'm trying to assume, but I did not handle it as well as you. If I were funny, I would have eaten the damn apple. Like that's what I'm doing now. Anything comes at me, I'm going to eat it.
I guess it didn't really occur to me to like leave the stage.
Okay. And nobody encouraged you to either.
No.
Like, this is stupid. I mean, I'm asking this as a comic. Are we sad that nobody from the audience stood up to protect you?
No, I think it all just happened so fast. People always think like, here's what I would do if I was in that position. And it's like, you don't really know what you'll do. And if somebody there were people who like stood up for me. I don't think that means you have to go to blows with somebody to stand up for someone, right? There were people you can hear a guy in the back saying like, I'm never coming out with these people again. Like, I think that's a good way of standing up for, and like publicly saying like, I disown this. The wait staff, like the waitresses were also, I think if those guys had stayed, if that couple had stayed in the bar, I think they would have gotten their asses kicked, but they left.
Good.
So there was no, like, I don't need somebody to go and like tackle somebody from behind to like defend my honor or whatever. It's like, I was okay. Let's like finish up this fucking set, and you guys have to buy my merch now after the show.
Who were you opening for? You were middling, right?
Yeah, for Gianmarco Soresi, who I think was also in a really difficult position because he then had to go up and do an hour.
Moment's over, you get home. You look at the clip and you say, F it, I'm going to put this online. That had to be a leap. It's a moment of vulnerability. You handled it gracefully, but alone before you had the validation of people like me and the rest of the planet Earth agreeing with you. When you're alone in your editing room at your laptop, there has to be a moment where you have to say, do I share this? Or were you like, F it, I'm sharing this? No,
I mean, look, I think that's also part of being friends with Gianmarco is like, Gianmarco is very online and very like media savvy. And he was just like, he said as soon as it happened, he checked my clip or my camera and his to make sure we had it. So funny. And then we had a 2 hour.
You were like, F it, we're putting this up.
Yeah. We had never done. No, we had a 2 hour drive back, and the whole conversation was like, he was like, here's the hashtags you use. Here's when you put it, like he was very much just like, you got to put this up. And I was like, yeah, of course. This will be a great clip. I also sort of had an idea that it would go over well because Gianmarco had made a couple of Instagram stories about it, and tweeted about it. And I
Okay.
saw like the engage. I didn't know it was going to be like viral, because you just don't. The things that it takes nowadays to go like super viral are pretty crazy, pretty
Yeah.
rare. But he had posted that, so I was just like, oh, okay, I see that there's some momentum, and I still had a ton of adrenaline. Like I didn't really sleep that night. So the next morning, I just like rolled over and just edited it and posted it.
You actually, one of your earlier thing in all this was that you were going to milk it. So you were milking it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll argue you got more than 15 minutes of fame out of this, you
Sure.
know,
A month
and-
later, and here I am doing your podcast.
yeah, exactly. This is what minute 36 looks like. But the dominoes start falling, and you get a news interview here, news interview there, and then Kimmel tweets you.
I didn't expect any of it. So when he retweeted just being like 5 stars for this performance, it was like, well, I've been trying to get on late night for years. So if he thinks this is good, wait until he sees my 5.
Yeah. And how was it doing Kimmel? Was it everything you dreamed?
Kimmel, they don't really do stand-up regularly. I think it had been 4 or 5 years since they had it.
Oh, wow.
So it was really cool. It was really nice. Everybody who worked there seemed really happy to be there. And great snack selection in the green room that I threw in my backpack to take home afterwards. And it was really cool. It was cool to, I don't think I had enough time to like overthink it. A lot of times when you find out you do late night, you get approved for late night, and then you've got to wait 6 months or whatever for a date. So you're just running the set and thinking like, should I do this joke? Should I do that? Like these jokes have changed. But this was just, I found out that I was approved, and then a week and a half later I was doing it. So it felt like one more event in this series of crazy events, in this series of things that I will have to unpack later. But it was so fucking cool.
And you're a good person, so it's kind of like I'm glad they threw the beer at you, like, because you handled it well. You were and again, we're not good friends or anything like that. I don't want to exaggerate it, but the few times I've interacted with you, I'm like, wow, she's actually really nice, which is doesn't really happen in comedy too much anymore. Or for me, I go hot and cold on other comics. Let's pause. Let's go back to the negative for 1 second. I saw you did an interview with Channel 4. You didn't press charges. Why?
So to press charge, there are a few reasons. I would have had to go back to Point Pleasant Beach to file the complaint. I would have then had to go back if it went to court. Like any subsequent event, I would have had to go back. It's like a 2.5-hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot in tolls. It's this thing of like, is this worth my time? Right? Like
harping on the negative moment wasn't worth your time. I'm asking this difficult question because that's sort of the gimmick of what I talk about on the podcast. Is I am trying to not wallow on vengeance and the negativity, and I've had rough things happen to me over the years, and I'm trying to let go.
Yeah.
You're the example of just letting go over and over and over again. Even the moment where you picked up the beer was like you were letting go in the middle of the incident.
Yeah, but I will say, I don't know that I would have felt that way because Dino was like, the club will press charges against him.
Wow.
So
okay, so he did the right thing too. That's important to say.
So I think if the club hadn't pressed charges against him, I don't know that I would have been like, oh, okay, like live and let live, because I do think there should be like legal consequences for throwing things at people.
Okay, that's also good to know that the club is pressing charges, because the way the article wrote it out, it didn't seem like the club had even the ability to do the right thing there.
It's very confusing. So that article came out, and it said that the club wasn't I don't know. It said that there were no charges being pressed. But
Yeah.
then I got a text later from Dino saying that they still were, something else had to be finished before they, like the police report or something had to be finished before they could actually file a complaint.
Okay.
And then he said, I think something about like they had filed charges and the guy has a hearing like in December.
No, but this is cool. So the club is
Yeah.
doing the right thing. That makes me
Mhm.
feel good. But
Yeah, me
you,
too.
as the quote unquote victim of a moment of aggression, are choosing to move on with your life and turn the proverbial lemon into a lemonade. I mean, yeah, you've turned this awful moment into arguably your best credit, right?
Yeah.
What advice do you give someone who has the figurative can of beer thrown at them in a moment?
I guess it depends on what you want out of it.
Mm.
Like if you just want to get mad back, that's fine too. I don't think it's like, I don't think you have to always keep your cool. I don't know if that like always sends the right message. To just be like, no, you can do whatever you want to me.
But
But generally, I would say like breathe through it, think about what the outcome you actually want, don't just react.
What I sort of got out of your moment was it seemed like you had your mission. The mission was, I'm a comic, I'm going to be funny.
Right.
And you never deviated.
When the drink was thrown and I saw it on the ground, my first thought was like, I mean, after trying to figure out what had happened, my first like real thought was, would it be funny if I drank this? And I was like, I think it would be funny. So I picked it up and felt that there was still something left. And I waited a second because you can see like everybody's attention was like behind me, was like looking, or not behind me. They were looking at the door. People. So I waited a second until more people started turning back to me. Wow. And then I drank it. So I think it's like, yeah, figure out what you want. Like, what is your goal here? I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in just matching other people's energy. Like, oh, they're mad at me, I'll be mad at them. And it's like, well, if what you want is to come to an agreement, or if what you want is to like show that you're right in a disagreement, usually yelling at them doesn't persuade them, it doesn't persuade anybody else. So like, what are you actually trying to put out there?
That's the perfect answer. That is a perfect answer. Last one, and then I'll let you go enjoy your Sunday. You've said a little bit now, and you said it once or twice in the press, that you don't want to go back to Point Pleasant, New Jersey, unless someone pays you. If the club pays you, will you go back?
Honestly, probably not.
Okay.
I think at the time, when I was doing these interviews, it was like, yeah, whatever, I'll go back. Who cares? Now that I've had a little bit more distance, I've thought about it a little bit more, and it's like, you know, I feel fine being back on stage, and like I don't have like PTSD from it or whatever. I do think being back on that stage might not be the most fun for me or for the audience, right? Like it's also like, who's really going to come to that? Like what kinds, like the people who are going to come to see me there, I think are people who are going to want to rehash this incident, right? They're all going to have heard about it, which is fine. Like I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this on stage and what the jokes are. I think I did them at West Side that night that you were hosting.
Yeah, you touched it just enough. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm not there yet. Like, you know, they're very like surface level jokes, but I think there are nights where I'm like, I don't want to do these jokes tonight. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I think if I go back there, I have to talk about it. And I don't want to feel like I have to talk about anything.
Okay.
So
actually, have you learned anything from watching Chris Rock? How he's handled it?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess
like Rock isn't talking like I'm not only impressed, but incredibly surprised that Rock has barely talked about Will Smith in 8 months.
Yeah, look, like trauma is a hard thing to talk about. You know what I mean? Sometimes it takes more than a year to figure out, like the stuff that I talk about on stage now. It's like growing up Jewish in Kentucky, my eating disorder, that stuff took like 15 years of distance from to really feel comfortable talking about it. So like,
yeah,
I think people see comedians as like, oh, you turn pain into comedy like that. And it's like, no, it takes a lot of time it takes a while to process your feelings about stuff.
Is this trauma worth sharing with an audience? Or is it more, okay, I've had this moment, this pain led to something good. I need to get back to talking about Ariel, the person, rather than one bad day I had?
I think I have to figure out what this one bad day says about me as a person and how to connect that.
Okay.
You know, like, because otherwise, if I don't find it worth it to talk about my trauma, like, why am I a comedian? You know what I mean? Like, not to say that all comedians have to talk about this, but like, that is kind of the stuff that I talk about.
Yeah.
So I think maybe right this second, it's not worth it for me, but I do believe that it will be.
I mean, and
figure it out.
let me give you a piece of credit though, too, because it's funny. You used I forget the exact line that you're going to milk it for all it's worth. You have turned stage time in New Jersey into a late night TV experience. Nobody has done that before, and nobody will do that again, or
Sure.
not for a long, long time. Is there something to be said about how do you know when you've gotten the most out of any trauma as a comic?
You know, when you write a bit and it really feels done, where you're like, you're not excited to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
You feel like you've said everything that needs to be said. I think that's when you know. I'm not there yet at all. I'm not even close. I haven't really figured out the bit about this yet, but you know, I think I'm not trying to be like the beer can comic. Like, I'm not trying to do that.
Then there you go. That's the last question. And that's the question I've been trying to figure out how to ask it, and you just hit it. You've used your pain for something good. How do you also keep yourself from being the beer can comic?
Well, look, like, experience helps, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think if I was 2 years into stand-up, I wouldn't know how to be anything but the beer can comic.
How many years in are you now? You're what,
11.
10 years? 11. Okay.
Yeah. So I already have, I was already starting to headline before this. I already had like some stuff under my belt. I do know how to be a whole person, I think. And so even if I feel like this is something I have to talk about, it's still just like Chris Rock, like, not, oh God, did I really just do that? But it's still just like a blip in the material.
No, and just like Chris Rock, and I'm going to let you off the hook in a minute here, because I think you've just said some very poignant stuff here today. Is the pain is a part of the message, but you don't want it to be the whole
Right.
defining point of view.
Yeah, it's like, what does this say about everything else that I'm trying to say? But this is not the thing that I'm trying to say, right?
Well, I love that this happened to you, and not because it happened to you, but because of what you have done with it, which includes not just the drinking the beer and the being the funny, but the spending the time here and giving me advice for processing my own traumas and stuff. And I love the way you framed it. You're not just funny, but what I've gotten out of this exchange here is you're also incredibly thoughtful, and I appreciate your time, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for this. It's every time I do a podcast about this, there's a little bit of me that's like, what am I really going to say that's new? And then a lot of the time, in this instance, especially, like, the person doing the podcast is like, very, like, ask thoughtful questions, and I'm able to think about it a different way and figure, as I get more distance from it. So thank you for asking good questions.
Thank you, my friend. Good. I wanted to end on a promo clip. Thank you. All right, folks, listen, just talking to the audience for 1 second. It's so weird to shift to this mode when I'm looking at the same camera. Folks, if you like the interview, share it, okay? Share it with a friend. Show love where love can be shown. Doing a quick version of the Magic Mirror here. I see Marianne, who got me up on stage on Uncle Vinnie's, and honestly, I'm eager to go back. I see Raj, who I met at the steak night. And most importantly, folks, I see Ryan, and I see Patrick, and I see Brian, and I see Dan. Thank you guys for listening and always showing the love and sending the notes and commenting. We're on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. And folks, I'm back again on Monday morning. Good night, New York.